Excellent. Looks like people are rolling in. Welcome, everybody. Chris Gates here. We're just going to give it a couple minutes for everyone to join in. People are still popping in here. Got a great presentation for you today on VeeamON. Just concluded yesterday. And we got Rickatron Vanover here too. We'll do introductions in a second. I know Rick just got in this morning. He's back home now. His beautiful office covered in Veeam branding. How are things, Rick?
I'm tired. I don't know what I was thinking when I said, yeah, I'll take a 5:30 a.m. flight to get back and set for this webinar, but I did. That was a choice. So
That's awesome. Well, glad to have you here. I mean, this is for people that don't know Rick, this is you're one of the bubbliest personalities in all in on the Veeam team. And when we're able to get you on this, it's stellar. So I'm excited about everything that we're going to be able to talk about today.
yeah, me too, man. Because honestly, it's a lot to take in, and we kind of boiled it down for everybody. So the TLDR, here we are.
That's my thought. I mean, even as an attendee, it's like you've got. I mean, how many sessions are there in total? I mean,
72.
72 sessions, and there's only enough time in the day for one guy to get 5-6 sessions in, and just how the chaos goes. You're not taking it all in. So this is. I talked to a number of different people, got the highlights from them, what they thought their top items were. I went to a couple sessions myself that I thought, well, shoot, this was they got me with the catchy title. Wasn't necessarily applicable to me, but maybe hopefully my other guys that I had there made it to a session that they found worthwhile.
Well,
But
that might have been my fault, the catchy title, so I'll apologize in advance. But yeah, I should say also there's 72 kind of all access public sessions. There's also some pre-content for partners like you and your colleagues that were there as well. We had some kind of segmented content for there. And then there's several kind of private things, like specific with some of the different teams, right? So yeah, there's a lot to take in. It's for us, it's it's the Super Bowl, it's the highlight of the year. So
yep. Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. Looks like we've got quorum here. So without further ado, um, yeah. Most of you on the call know me, Chris Gates, Virtual Systems. I've got my VMCE. I've got a background in engineering, pre-sales, and moved on to technical sales and director of sales and marketing here at Virtual Systems. And we're fortunate enough to have Rickatron Vanover from Veeam today. Rick, why don't you do a little intro?
yeah, cheers everyone. I'm on the product team at Veeam, and I'm in my 14th year as such, and I've been on the product team the whole time. And Chris, VMC, that's not easy to do anymore. It's hard. And congrats on that for everyone on the call. That stands for the Veeam Certified Engineer credential. So that's and I got to say, on your team, Eric's one of the sharpest out there. So to speak into the audience here, Chris and his colleagues run a very high skill, well executed Veeam implementation. That was one of the kind of things when I'm like, I'm going to come chat with you about this. I really like the way your team rolls, and happy to be on here with you today. I'll even take a 5:30 a.m. flight for you.
I appreciate that, Rick. Just a little bit about Virtual Systems. For those who don't know, we've been around since 2003. We started off putting microwave dishes on towers, delivering rural internet. Got into the colo business with US Signal, purchased our own infrastructure, started doing VDI hosting through VMware Horizon, physical to virtual migrations with VMware doing a virtual private server type deals. With all that storage we had a partnership with Veeam and started doing some data backup storage for people. When I came onto the team about 6 years ago, I had a strong background with Veeam, VMware, Nimble Storage, and I said, I think we can put vCloud Director in here, start doing some replication, start forming some better partnerships, leveraging Veeam. And that's kind of when object storage came onto the market as well with 9.5 Update 4, and that was just massive for us. And we started leveraging M365 backup, and that's been incredible. Veeam's been an amazing partner. We're a platinum partner now, so the largest Veeam partner, Veeam cloud service provider in the Great Lakes region. So we have rotating audits you see down there on the right for HIPAA, SOC 2 Type 2, PCI. So yeah, we take security quite seriously and have a very skilled team that keeps us on our toes. So as far as Veeam goes, the core of our offering, excluding Salesforce and 365, is offsite backup as a service, leveraging Cloud Connect, and DR as a service, aka replication. So we've got resources, be it storage or compute and RAM, where we can keep those replicas here, send them back and forth, and if you have an outage, God forbid, then you can spin up very quickly. And we've had a number of clients that have had to take advantage of that, whether it be ransomware or power event or human error, operating system error. So yeah, if you don't have that, it's very easy to get set up. So let's take a quick poll. I just want, before we get into all the ransomware and all the numbers, let's see where people are at as far as any ransomware cybersecurity events.
Yeah, and so Chris, to get that working, why don't you go ahead and it looks like we just got a message in from Jeff that he needs to be elevated to push the poll. And
Shoot.
That's okay. I got something to say to fill the time. It's all good. One thing I want to highlight about those services that you outlined there, Chris, and for the audience, it's really important to notice. Here, let's kick off this question, and I'll finish that thought. So yeah, have you had a ransomware attack in the last 2 years? But one thing I want to highlight is that those extra additional services beyond backup and DR, those are super critical, friends, when it comes to ransomware response, because we're going to get into some of this, but like so often people are surprised they can't come back to where they came from. Cybersecurity law enforcement, maybe the insurance premiums have taken control of assessing root cause. They've fenced it off like evidence and you can't get in there, right? So you might have to go somewhere. So those other services are super helpful when you need it. And, to this question, as we see the results come in, one thing I'll say, Chris, is that I used to ask people to raise hands, but, you'd be surprised how many people do raise their hands. And we got a pretty well-prepared group here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe people are being shy. I don't know. But,
I
also,
think so. Hey, 25% still.
yeah. But the reality is, I like to say there's the have not and then the have not yet,
Right. Well, speaking of that, let's start to get into some of the numbers here. And this is my favorite part too. I know Dave Russell from the strategy team. He puts together. He just how many people do they reach out to?
I want to say this is a kind of one of those cornerstone data points from the Veeam Ransomware Trends 2024 report. And the body of work is based on 1,200 double blind. And that's really important. Double blind means the respondents don't know who's asking, and the people asking the question do not know who's answering. So I don't know if they're Veeam customers, and they don't know if Veeam is asking. Okay, that's what
Hmm.
I mean by double blind. But of those 1,200, they had to be an organization who would have said yes to that question. I have had some sort of incident. It could be as simple as whatever locky on a PC, and it could be, a disaster in the data center, anything in between. But what's consistent of those 1,200 global respondents, 96% of those incidents, the threat actor tried to attack the backup repository. So they know that a secure backup is the best course of action to recover. And most or all of 35%, most or all, some, they weren't affected, meaning what I think the important thing to highlight here, Chris, is 20% wasn't affected, but
Hmm.
there most of them were affected, right? So really that green and the colors matter. If you've ever heard Jason or Dave kind of drill into this, they really want to make the green bigger. So yes, they tried, but they were not successful. So I want to say it
Hmm.
another way, Chris. 80% of the attempts were successful at damaging backups. Now, for those listening out here, you might say, what is a backup guy saying? Such doom and gloom. The reality is the service that Chris highlighted is by default ultra resilient. That's a word I made up. It's inherently ready to recover from ransomware. So think of things like immutable, offline, air gapped, or in the case of Cloud Connect with insider protection, it's a copy of data that requires 4 eyes authorization. Virtual systems would need to re-expose that in a true disaster or a threat actor situation, right? So it's in that category of being ultra resilient. So when you look at this, the threat actors know where to go. And then if you have an ultra resilient copy of data, you're best prepared. And that is what sits in that green. So that's kind of the rest of the story from my perspective, thinking a little bit more storage heavy on this response here.
Yeah, and that, that's great stuff. Now, this next slide too shows. I mean, even if you could get restoration, you're not you're not totally safe.
Well, it's not so much that you're safe, it's just, you might not be able to go to plan A. And that's why I really want to
Right.
highlight that those other services. Um, I'm from Ohio. It's almost the South that y'all offer. Those other services that y'all offer really become that secret weapon when plan A doesn't pan out. And I have talked to so many scenarios where they don't have a plan B, they don't have a plan C, and then they have new problems. And taking something out from the VeeamON keynote yesterday, sorry, the day before on Tuesday, the recent Coveware acquisition, Bill Siegel, the leader of that business unit, his favorite quote that I picked up was, within 15 minutes of the phone call, he can tell right away how this is going to go. And I think, anybody who you know what I mean. If you've ever had to interview someone, in 15 minutes if you're going to want or not to want to have that person in your team. If you get a new assignment for something, you're going to know right away how that's going to go. And when it comes to like thinking of your plan A and plan B, the way these incidents strike, you might need to reissue the hardware, or maybe you cannot. Again, it becomes chain of evidence, it becomes a property of the investigation. And one thing I want to highlight is, and this is taken one of Bill Siegel's points here about practice is the only practical way to be prepared to do these types of things. But honestly, I've been an IT admin. We don't have time for that. We need expertise, and we need resources in place from, dare I say, professionals that know what they're doing, virtual systems that can help provide these types of infrastructure available to us in these situations. So I want to debrief real quickly on a good friend of mine up in Canada. They are in the oil and, well, they were kind of a IT for hire in the oil and gas space up in Alberta, Canada, and walked into the nasty screen of death. And it was actually really interesting because it was Hyper-V. Now, I'm talk about that in a second, but it was one of those things that wiping that hardware and doing infrastructure as code in a greenfield situation to get out of that. They had the backups, but if you're not familiar with being greenfield IT to re-image systems, because you're not going to trust anything. You're going to go down to the BIOS. You're going to, do drive firmwares, and you're going to do OS reinstalls, whatever that OS is. Greenfield IT or infrastructure as code, that's going to be a slow process, right? So it's like there's all these surprises. And so I've seen organizations rush into the cloud, into AWS and Azure, and then they got completely new problems because they didn't practice that either, right? But if you can keep the same model of an infrastructure stack and then recover it to a similar platform, maybe in a different location, you can be more prepared, right? So
Hmm.
the real takeaway here is that these investigations, cybersecurity law enforcement, the insurance, your own cybersecurity team, could they be a friend or at least in your way? Those types of stakeholders come out of nowhere and start, oh,
Hmm.
this has all got to be locked up, or whatever. Well, I'm like, it's already locked up. It's ransomware. Of course it's locked up, you know? Anyways.
So, uh, continuing on ransomware, immutability seems like it's everywhere nowadays, and I've been curious about. I mean, we've seen a relatively surprisingly slow uptick of customers that are adapting to it, but it looks like from these stats that a lot of these 1,200 some customers have a significant usage of immutability, which is great
Well,
to see.
it is, and I would never make it in sales, Chris, but I'm not that good in math, but I can tell you this adds up to more than 100%. So what this means is, I'm keeping you listening here. People are using multiple types. Okay, maybe the edge might need tape, and maybe the data center is a better suited for some of the ones on the top. And then maybe different tiers need additional layers. I am an avid fan of what I call double play or triple play immutability. So think of that 3-2-1 rule where everything is immutable. I want to draw your attention to the audience about this notion of double play immutability, because the nature of a Veeam backup is completely self-describing and completely portable. Dare I say absolutely portable, meaning if you do the 3-2-1 rule, first of all, you only need one of those copies. Let's say, for example, you put both of your copies in the top two, or the middle two might even be a better example. On-premises storage with immutability or locking. I got a lot
Mhm.
of friends at like Exagrid. I know like those Object First folk have a object storage on-prem. Ceph can do it, in the BYO situation. Something on premises that has object storage, or Exagrid in the case of their retention time lock. There's so many storage options. But that middle one, cloud service offering, backup as a service, or DRAS, that copy offsite, which is also potentially instrumental to your unplanned recovery strategy. I like to, honestly, in most situations, I'll recommend something like that because, first of all, you've got two absolutely independent copies of your data that are completely recoverable. And the best part about this mechanism is that both copies have no persistent connection back to the blast radius, to put it in ransomware
Mhm.
terms. If you have an immutable copy on a local object storage or the local Veeam hardened repository, there's so many ways to do ultra resilient storage, but you also have that copy in a backup as a service model, like what you're doing here with Cloud Connect, because it's backup storage as a service. And then with insider protection, it's also ultra resilient, but you're given that secret weapon of being able to recover elsewhere. So these double play immutability situations, in my opinion, Chris, really put people in like a mathematical low risk situation because you have a very high confidence that you can recover that data because they're
Mhm.
two different immutability control planes, two absolutely portable copies of the data, because it also, not just cybersecurity, it also is ready to address fire, flood, and blood type scenarios as well.
Excellent. Well, let's get into some of the other features. I know I can see from the registrant list that we've got some customers of ours that heavily utilize our 365 offerings. So go ahead and talk about some of these things.
Yeah, so Microsoft 365 is a critical data set, right? I use it every day. I'm not going to say I like it, but I use it every day. Okay. But we all agree it's critical. And I'd go one step further for most of the audience. Think of OneDrive for Business. That's basically a new file server. Okay, it's critical data, OneDrive. So the thought here is we have to protect it. And Chris and his colleagues have built a solid offering around that. And we have a new release coming, let's just say in Q3 of this year. And Chris was already asking the good questions on what we can do to build extra innovation around it. And he's really smart. He went backwards in the supply chain and started talking to the people who are making this product. But some enhanced security, some enhanced scalability, and some additional supportability capabilities. So a lot of abilities in that line. All three of these things really roll out this release. So let's take a look in detail at what some of those are, because I might have forgotten. I forget.
Yeah, and
Um,
I just
yeah.
want to say quick. I got some questions coming in,
Oh,
but I
there we
want to
go. Yeah.
hold questions until we'll hold it until the end and then answer these. So we'll dive a little further into uh,
Yeah.
immutability here. Let's go. There we go.
Yeah, keep those questions coming. We got time at the end for sure. We'll dig into it and have some fun. And I see one of you, I know you. You're throwing me a trick question, but um, the immutability, right? Honestly, regardless of the data set, I actually think the threat actors are going to go down the big game hunting realm and go for the service. And the way it, goes, OneDrive is what I'm referring to, the way it's consistently used throughout the organization, that could be disruptive. SharePoint, workflows are built around these types of things now. So for the Microsoft 365 data set, the next release will have the first copy of data available for immutable copies, so that, or immutable storage. So that'll be really exciting because we'll have basically double play immutability for Microsoft 365 data as well. This is pretty attractive because a lot of organizations are realizing finally that this data is critical. And so we're happy to add one more big checkbox in the immutability bucket.
Excellent. And one of my favorite things about 365, the announcement was these proxy pools too. So that's awesome. And I know the product heads, Mike Ressler and Polina, they were pretty excited about this as well. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on it?
Well, this internally was called the service provider release for this product, because this right here, the proxy pools, is just wow, that's awesome, because the multiple proxies that are logically combined for the backup job policies to get it done makes all the difference in the world, because we're finding ourselves talking to organizations with much larger and larger mailbox counts,
Mhm.
and the infrastructure required to do that, it's possible. We have, well, you as a service provider are surely doing a lot, but we have some large organizations in the double digit of thousands with one entity backing up, and then service providers, go way above that. But it's borderline rocket science sometimes on sizing and placement and all of that. But having this scale out, I don't want to call it scale out because it's not the word we're using, but this pool where the work can be scaled across. Maybe it's a scale across instead of a scale out. This is really going to help the performance in conjunction with just enhanced logic, which we'll talk about. We talked about in the keynote. We're seeing an example that was 15x faster. I mean, this is just going to be night and day. So it'll really just make the onboarding, that first backup in particular, really, really go faster.
And I mean, we have a couple customers that are over 10,000 users, and it's been trying to scale that and architect that. I know we've worked with some of the top levels at Veeam to try to figure out what's the best way to architect this back and forth, and it's been kind of trial and error. But proxy pools is going to take a lot of the guesswork out of this. I'm stoked for it.
Absolutely.
Let's see.
Yeah, and this is what it is, just a look at it here, just for those who administer it, and then Chris's team is gonna do this for their offered service, right? So the thought is, of course, organizations can buy and install Veeam and set it up, but it's honestly sometimes easier if someone does it for you. So the thought here is that there's object storage pool for pooling for the throughput, and that's really by design, because that's really what people want. They're not wanting to get into block and file for this type of data, and it's based on the core two resources there to to load balance. And also the throttling is based on the APIs that Microsoft 365, the service itself, provides these connections. So, so everybody's excited. Everybody wants to get into the pool party, if anybody catches the name of this pool. So it's a party. And I stole something else here. This is kind of a global set of advice. I guess I'm using the language, Chris, honor burden. One of my honor burdens of Veeam is to help make the content experience at VeeamON. And I, picked up stuff from some of the architects. I picked up stuff from our product teams, and I also picked up something from tech support. And that's this. I really like this slide that they had. They have like a whole set of do's and don'ts, and they had actually one big don't slide. This is hilarious, and I'm sure you've had it. Customers lying to tech support. like,
No, I never. Yeah.
like they literally had one big slide. Do not lie to us. We will find it in the logs. And I thought, holy buckets, that's hilarious. But they do come up with a handful of good ideas to do. Do involve different teams, and it's a holistic thing. Things are interconnected now. We all get it. The same thing with vendors. You think about hypervisor stacks, storage firmwares. Did, somebody sneak in an update that broke everything? That probably has happened once or twice. Best practices for all products and really in methodologies. A lot of people treat, for example, image-based backups and their deduplication target or their object storage target or their offsite backup target. They pay a lot of attention to that, but their Veeam agent is like 4 versions obsolete, right? So there's a currency that people need to think about. And just remember that Veeam is the crossroads of data, right? So it's kind of thinking of the backup infrastructure as part of the infrastructure. And so just a couple of thoughts there to share. And again, I love the don't lie to tech support. And I think any vendor, if you have, if you're calling Microsoft, if you're calling virtual systems, if you're calling Veeam, we all would agree, don't lie
I mean,
about.
it's like lying to your doctor. He's gonna find out eventually.
I don't even know what a donut is, Chris. I mean, look at me. Yeah, no, doesn't work. But no, those are a couple slides that I stole from some of the content here that we had at VeeamON. But let's kind of poke the audience and see what they've got for this one.
Yeah, let's take another poll. So there was an interesting stats in that same session that talked to they had how much improvement was needed, or what the differentiation was between what you actually have today and what your plan is. And I know a lot of people have a grandiose plan, but what they get the budget for, what they get the approval for, what they've got the services for isn't always in sync. So
we forgot to add option number 5. Now that I think about it, like, I can't stand them. Okay, that might be an acceptable answer too. I joke because I've been in meetings where I've seen it that thick in the air that you can taste it. It's a definite us and them. But the nature of this question, joking aside, is actually quite serious. I will tell you this: the organizations that I see that are very well equipped to handle some of the ransomware do not have the us versus them. I've got several examples of that being a problem, and one where the customer, it was a healthcare, almost pretty consistent. I like this. One of the healthcare customers almost lost everything because of the us versus them, and it was luck in the end. It was in the earlier days of ransomware, but they did everything wrong. They just had some luck. But I think this alignment between security teams, backup teams, super important. But I'll say I go into a lot of meetings now. There's just one other person in here, and they're generally aligned from a security perspective to the backup teams, and that's just the right way to start it.
And I know I'm talking a lot about ransomware. Yeah, but it's I mean, just coming out of this conference, this is supposed to be what's new at VeeamON. I'm trying to sprinkle that in a little bit back and forth, but honestly, ransomware was just such an overwhelming issue. I mean, we're seeing 96%. We're seeing 96% of backup repositories targeted. 75% of organizations had at least one cyber attack. We saw that 25% in this webinar, but it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's truly a matter of when it happens, and then when will you be safe or not. So another big thing is ransomware insurance too. We're getting contacted by a number of companies because they are trying to find insurance, and their insurance company is asking them to do their diligence and have an offsite backup, follow a 3-2-1 strategy, get immutability. So it's like, I don't know if I should be thanking the ransomware insurance companies for helping me do my job for me, because they're making sure that they have the things that I'm telling them to do anyway, because this insurance company doesn't want to pay out. And sometimes they don't pay out, whether you've got a pre-existing IT condition or that they saw relatively like 60% of the time, or 60% of the costs in a cybersecurity incident were covered. So that means the company's still on the hook for 40% of those costs in an incident. And just like the hurricanes in Louisiana, homeowners insurance, everything's going up across the board because ransomware continues to be more and more prevalent. And as people put more stake in data, it's more and more valuable. So,
Chris, I see actually a good thing on that slide, if you don't mind. One,
I'm going back, yeah.
real quickly though, the first bullet point, 83% had an incident, 75% had an incident. So year over year, that improved. Okay.
Yep.
Now, 8% may not seem incredible, but that's basically almost a 10, that's just under a 10% improvement. So that is actually something to celebrate. And I would attribute a lot of user education to that. And I will die on this hill that user education, getting everybody to effectively be part of the cybersecurity team, is the single most effective prevention technique, right? Not the recovery technique. We got to prepare for it to happen, but preventing it is user education. So I actually would celebrate that, phishing simulation, all of that. So there is hope. There's hope. I know you're getting the good news, but I found a little silver lining there too.
I appreciate that, Rick. Yeah, so I distilled this down to the 3 key things that I took away that were major preventers for organizations' ability to recover from ransomware. Top one, far and above, immutability, mutable storage on disk, in the cloud, whether we've got an on-site appliance like you talked about with Object First, or you've got a hard Linux repository, or you've got cloud like virtual systems where you've got immutability with us. Now, staged restore. This is hand in hand with Sure Backup. Sure Backup. A lot of my customers on this call, it's the dead horse that I continue to beat because it's my favorite thing to talk about, and it's just such an underrated feature for Veeam because so many admins do not know about Sure Backup and Staged Restore. And in 12.1 earlier this year, Staged Restore got a whole lot better. Now you can integrate before you do a restore. You can add in antivirus and scanning, and if you utilize Yara at all, you can add some custom Yara rules too to inject scripts and pull data out of that too. So that's key to the worst thing that could happen is you're trying to restore a backup, you don't know that it's infected, and you restore an infected backup. So you're doing a lot more work than you need to there. Staged restore hopefully finds that Sure Backup to begin with. You're checking those backups proactively, making sure that you don't have ransomware on there. So you're good there. Staged restore just makes sure that you don't have any infection in there if you're not utilizing all that horsepower to do Sure Backup in the first place. But I don't want to move on and understate the power of Staged Restore and Sure Backup. Anything you want to add on that?
Well, I would just add that, Sure Backup and, the scanning at face value may seem like an incredible amount of IOPS that maybe I don't want to deal with just now. Two things I want to highlight. One is you can make sure backup jobs that will do a random selection. And I actually love that. Like you could just say, pick randomly 5 out of everything I'm backing up. And you could scan it for recoverability, or I should say, you could scan it for recoverability and or scan it just with the antivirus scan looking for signatures. And the YARA rules, like if, especially if you're like post something happening, like, oh, we just, had an isolated incidence of XYZ ransomware. Is it still elsewhere? A YARA rule may help us look for that. So, and you can do that randomly, right? So it doesn't
Mhm.
have to, be all the IOPS tonight, so the random is a really, really big option in addition to just doing the content scan, either antivirus or YARA rules. So makes a difference. Our, again, the practice back to the advice we're seeing, and then also just simply being familiar with how to do these things, especially if you need to, really goes a long way.
Yeah. No, MFA, MFA's been in VBR for a while, and now they've just added it into the, or it's coming in VA into the VBO console, correct?
Yeah.
So, and we've got auto log off too. So it's not going to keep that session logged in there in case an attacker happens to get into the into the VM or into the console. MFA absolutely critical. We had a customer who's a local furniture manufacturer, and I got a text as I was about to take off on the plane a couple months ago, and the text just said, "Hey, are my backups good?"
Oh,
Like,
snap.
that's not a text you want to get. So call, hey, and what happened? And they said, somebody they got into their backup console. That was the first place they went to, backup repository. Boom. And they try to delete the cloud backups, and I go, hey, what? How are they even able to get into the console in the first place? What, didn't you have MFA turned on? No, we didn't have MFA. Well, now we've got some remediation and engineering time to do some restores here. So that all would have all could have been saved with the click of one button for to turning on MFA. So
Yeah, they're
uh,
layers. They're like mathematical layers of resiliency that can help mitigate the threat. I mean, the threat actors will keep peeling the onion, but
yeah,
I would highly, my blanket advice is that the multi-factor, the auto log off, and other things like not having on-prem Veeam servers directly connected to the internet, wah wah wah. The juice is worth the squeeze,
mhm.
you know.
And to me, it's just layers. Like you said, making it harder. They want path of least resistance when going after these different victims. So the harder you can make it to get into, the less you expose yourself to an attack.
Indeed.
So now, kind of the main slide that everyone's here for. What are the big highlights about the different Veeam products? Um, V12 one, like we just talked about, introduced some powerful uh, proactive solutions to malware-free backups without requiring a data lab, like this AV injection, YARA rules, so on and so forth. That gets even better in 12.2 coming out later this year. Um, Immutable backups now, immutable copies and config copies is new coming. We've got SIM integration, so if you use Splunk, Datadog, Logarithm, so on and so forth. Um, Palo Alto, I know we've got a couple customers on this call that use Palo Alto. Palo Alto integrations are coming too. And Linux VBR proxies, so that's exciting too. Save on licensing. Um, Less to worry about with the updating there. I know that a couple people I talked to were super excited about Linux VBR proxies and M365 proxies too. So
Absolutely, Linux all the way. I mean, nobody's pushing back on that, and especially you mentioned the Palo Alto. That's actually, I want to highlight two different disciplines. It's going to come as a SIEM platform integration, and then also kind of orchestration, automation, and response. So SIM and SOAR. It's going to do both. It's going to hit on both ends of that. So no such thing as too much security.
Hmm. Love that. M365 V8 coming out later this year, and Postgres SQL was a huge addition to that. Auto log off MFA. I'm going to keep hitting that MFA note. Linux proxy pools we talked about already. Block or object repositories, and then adding immutability in there as well was we've had a lot of requests for that. So
For sure.
anything you want to touch on M365 before I move on here?
No, just that, maybe if some larger organization, it was a little hard to get started. I kind of think, again, the scale topic is really going to be addressed with this version 8. So um looking forward to just maybe those organizations that maybe touched it and burnt their fingers, they might want to, we could try it again.
Yep, Salesforce backup, and there's a huge market for Salesforce. It's been slow to grow. We've got encryption coming soon. We've got a whole Salesforce demo environment built here at VS. My guys, like you mentioned, Eric, Tyler, they are up to speed on it, and we've been doing a number of demos. So if anybody has Salesforce, they're curious about what it looks like, happy to run through it and show it. Proxmox. So this is probably a whole nother webinar, but the whole VMware Broadcom thing, I don't necessarily want to get into that right now. Everyone knows about it. I've talked to most of the people on this about it. It's opened up a lot of new avenues, Nutanix, Proxmox, OpenStack. A lot of these players that have been previously, just in the shadow of the VMware Hyper-V uh, skyscraper are now coming to light. So it seems like Veeam has heard and listened and is delivering support and integration. So what do you know more than I do about Proxmox and Nutanix?
So we have an update coming that'll address both. The version 6 of the Nutanix hypervisor solution will be out Q3 of this year. Has a lot of kind of additional capabilities that doesn't quite take it all the way up to where Hyper-V is, but it makes it a very strong third hypervisor for us. It is in preview now, and our SE teams can do that in beta. And then the new kid on the hypervisor block is Proxmox. And I'll be honest with you, Chris, I've never seen such a fanfare for something that I really have never heard of just a few months ago. And I downloaded it when we got the green light that we were going to support it. And I was really surprised how easy it is. It feels very familiar to something like VMware Server 2.0. I'm trying, it is on my written to-do list. I'm going to try to write up, because I believe I know the agents will back it up now, but I believe I know a way with Veeam to move from VMware to Proxmox today with the agents using our recovery media injecting drivers. Okay. I believe I can do that with the VirtIO stack. So I'm working on it, but I'm hoping to get this done before tomorrow. But yeah, this is a whole bunch of stuff. I want to go back briefly. Not all of our partners get the Salesforce story. Again, I truly mean it when I say that the virtual systems folk are a sharp group of people. If you have Salesforce in your environment and it's not being backed up, you really should. This product real quickly can just go into broad stroke compliance use cases. Trust me, that CSV file that Salesforce emails you is not a backup. And then secondly, there's incredible data reuse and archiving capabilities that are coming. So, talk to Eric talk to Eric. He's one of your engineers, but talk to Chris and his colleagues about that, and highly recommend that, because like I said, not all of our partners get the Salesforce story, and that's also really strategic for us as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And seeing that demo on stage 2 of using instant restore from a VMware backup or a Hyper-V backup right into Proxmox, that was, I mean, we're talking minutes, and you've done a restore.
Well, I moved 10 from VMware to Hyper-V, and then Anthony moved one very small one from VMware to Proxmox. But we've had this technology, Chris, since 2016. We've been doing it because sometimes people wanted to, but now sometimes they're thinking that they might need to move platforms. But yeah, that might be a good next webinar.
Now, I knew I was going to hear about AI. I'm hearing about AI everywhere else. But Veeam has got some really cool Copilot, Microsoft Copilot integrations with VeeamON coming down the pipe too. I mean, Anthony was demonstrating in VeeamON, just asking questions. Who's not protected or what groups are not protected in my M365 organization, and Copilot, spits out, these are the people that are not protected. So it was pretty mind blowing. I mean, what Copilot could do and how much access it had to all that data. What are your thoughts on that integration?
Well, we have four very distinct AI strategies: what we've done in the ecosystem and partnerships, what we've productized, what we're doing for customer experience, like our tech support team, and then what we're doing internally for private AI. So, and all four of them have several bullet points, right? So AI is the next webinar after migration we should talk about. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing I will say about the journey from machine learning to AI to generative AI, and it is a hockey stick type of journey, is that when you think about all the data under management in a backup world, which is it's a perspective of the production world. I think that's pretty clear, right? Your children are the result of your parents. Your backup is the result of your production data. And the thought here is that analyzing it, insights, the only practical way to do that is with AI. And imagine if it was all contained in one repository called backup. So we are on the edge of some really, truly incredible stuff. And I'm really excited about it. Yeah, we showed two different angles: the AI assistant, which is coming in VeeamON, and we also showed in Copilot, which is going to give insights into Microsoft 365 data. And I think Anton said it best on the quote. He said something to the effect of, we're using AI the right way where it makes sense. It's
Mm.
all a very practical way. In fact, everything we're talking AI that we're talking about, we had a demonstrable example of it too. It's not just this lofty vision. So I don't know. I'm walking kind of the, I don't want to call it aggressive, but a very defendable way with AI.
Yeah. Oh, how'd
Oh,
that
don't
get in there?
forget.
Yeah, don't forget MFA. I love it.
Nice.
All right, we're wrapping things up. I just we'll do Q&A in a second here. I just a lot of the conversation that was having really differ or separates Veeam from a typical data backup company, and I'm really embracing this data resiliency term. I mean, Veeam's long been the leader in the backup and recovery space. And had aggressive innovation with a wide support over a multitude of platforms, and continues to do such. I mean, the recent inclusion of in Data Labs features secure restore, sure backup, proactive ransomware protection. It's just so much more than just a general data backup product. I don't know if I don't know if I think I can mention the Coveware acquisition, but Coveware, for those that don't know, incident response company. That's going. I'm not. Maybe you can speak to what that's going to look like, or why Veeam's making that acquisition. But
Yeah, sure. So one of the demos I was asked to do was to show an end-to-end cyber resiliency strategy powered by Veeam. And of course, we were running late, so I had to kind of hustle through, but I kind of started with the blast radius where Threat Center saw something was bad. And then I showed the screen. I had simulated a popular ransom. Actually, it wasn't a simulation. It was an actual proper ransomware. And then I, started to do recovery, and I started to do discovery. And this is where the Coveware part comes in. They have a whole software stack that will look at both the infected but also the non-infected systems, because the MITRE ATT&CK framework has all these different primitives of, lateral movement, deploying the payload, exposing the payload, and really until the strike point, signature-based scanning is not really effective. Okay. And I saw that happen. I have this contaminated specimen. I didn't have time, and it's probably not in my best interest for what Veeam's up to do to kind of show the transition from when it's like stealthy to when it's exposed. But the secure restore didn't catch it. Only until I activated it did it catch it, right? But the Covar stack can't. And I kind of there's some decisions that aren't yet finalized, but
Mhm,
internally we have an agreement in principle to this, that it's reasonable to expect that you will see the Covar stack become integrated with the Veeam data platform. And
mhm.
I've got some ideas that I've shared internally, and I'm like a little popcorn machine, and that's after a busy week, right? So um yeah, so watch this space. That's what I'm trying to say.
Honestly, I mean, maybe I'm just high off of the whole VeeamON thing, but going to all this and seeing everything that Veeam has done. It just, to me, I'm just so excited to have hitched our wagon to this horse, because I mean, they're just so visionary in this space. So I thank you for making a great product.
Well, I'll throw it right back. I mean, again, third time. This is a smart partner. They do really good. There's, not that many that can have the technical execution. I'm friends, seriously, I'm afraid every time I have to talk to this architect he's got. This guy's smarter than me on the Veeam stuff. So I truly mean it. This virtual systems, this stack here, they run a very good operation, and that's kind of one of my tests before I go engage with some of them. So back at you,
Eric,
Chris.
Eric was talking to Marty last night about Salesforce and its NFS repository and architecture differences, and Marty goes, "Nobody is doing this. No one's
Yes,
talking about
exactly.
this." He goes, "You got to tell the Salesforce team about this, and we got to get you into the Vanguard program, and you can get it on the blog so other people
Well,
can do this." And
yeah, I probably should do an intro to Andre on my team, the guy who did that demo. And that guy, he's actually in Berlin working alongside with the Salesforce team developers, right? So the guy who did that demo. So yeah, got an action item internally.
awesome. Let's we're kind of coming up on time here. We got a couple questions here. How important do you see data locality to recovery?
Hey, Vinny, long road, small world. It's actually critical. First of all, there's a latency consideration, right? I think latency on incremental backups, and you can get into incremental restores that can help you both ways. I think it's important, but the other hill I will die on, Vinny, is that 3-2-1 rule.
Um, in the age of AI and increasingly complex ransomware risks, what backup standards should organizations consider beyond 321?
All right, Paul, this is a solid question. Veeam has started using this 3-2-1-1-0, which is the difference is one that's ultra resilient and zero surprises because you've done sure backup, you've done malware scans and things like that. I could go one step farther, Phil, and suggest 3-2-1 3-2-0, two immutable copies, or 4-2-1-3-0, and the four and that extra is an analytics use case copy. Okay. So I've talked to some organizations that kind of reprovision their DRs and analytics environment. Um, Kind of interesting when you think about that. I do think you'll see productized AI from Veeam. I can confirm we're working on that kind of stuff. But I also think your data better than anybody. And if the customer, in the case of Paul asking this question, do you have an AI shop of your own that can maybe solve a very specific use case? But my guiding principle going down the path of AI is number one, um, business outcome first of mind. Number two, uh, provision security and safety and integrity of that data, right? Because you otherwise are just doing a very expensive science experiment.
Love that. Thank you. Last one, Vinny, again. Thanks, Vinny. Are people prepared to recover at the best location for fastest restore based on their data locality?
I would say it depends, but I would say their level of preparation is 100% dictated on their level of preparation. You know, they're practicing and their knowledge and their familiarity, and then their assessment of a plan A, B, and C, right?
Mhm.
So it depends, but tabletop exercises is a great way to start. And one practical tip, have the smartest two people take that day off. I'm serious, because the threat actors know. So
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're architect one and you know, and they're kind of their compadre are both, maybe they went to VeeamON for training or went on PTO or something like that. That's your strike point. So
Hmm.
I mean, because again, you don't think about that, but that's plan A, and then you got to think plan B, and then you got to think plan C.
Interesting. Well, we'll wrap things up here. Thanks everyone for coming and staying. I've got some APC UPSs that I want to give away. So um, we're going to have a survey. Fill that survey out, send it back to me, and I'll try to get some UPSs out to some of the winners. We're just gonna kind of randomize it, and then I've got five of the UPSs, and whatever comes up, we'll contact you and send them out. So Rick, anything else to close with? You don't have to plug us a fourth time. I only paid you for three, so I appreciate it.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna plug a different thing at home. One of the most ridiculous things I do is I actually put my alarm clock in my house on one of those types of batteries. Because if the power goes out at night, I want to know about it, you know. So I'm gonna plug your gift. Okay, how about that?
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Awesome, Guy. Thanks for coming, everybody. Hopefully, it was helpful. I don't do these very often, so if it was helpful, let me know. I can do more. I can tailor the content differently. Um, if it wasn't helpful, let me know, and I'll stop. But awesome. Thanks, Rick. Thanks to Veeam.
Thanks,
Had a
Chris.
great time.